targets, our passers, and then our setters are outside the screen for them, okay? So one of the things we want to do at practice is we want to have an idea of what is their performance. And I think that outside of comparing athletes, I think getting an idea of how consistently your athletes are performing is really important, right? So if you've ever asked, have you ever asked your athletes how their day went? And they're like, yeah, I had a pretty good day. Are they always accurate? No, probably not, right? Like some days they feel like it was a crappy day, but they actually played pretty well, right? So there's times in our discussions with player feedback that we can see that sometimes their thought or the way that they feel it's going is actually incorrect. More times than not, they think they're playing better than they are. Very rarely they think they're playing worse than they actually are, right? So some of the things we track at practice are hitting percentage, right? Hitting percentage. So this is actually a really good demonstration of what we want. This grid for us, this is just an Excel spreadsheet. We make this through our shared, kind of system through Central Michigan. It's like in our OneDrive type things, right? So I have this linked to my phone, and then after practice, if we do all practice with pen and paper, or we do it on our whiteboard, and I think there's times and value to kind of track things where they can see their performance, and there's times where we track it with a clipboard, and we kind of present them. It's always made available to them after practice is over. Now the things that we have here is you're seeing some different colors. This is important to us as we deliver the information to our athletes, okay? So the green, the yellow, the red, that corresponds to the standard that we set, right? And I'll talk about how we determine what that standard is. Green means you're meeting the standard, right? You're playing at a top 0.25% of our league. Okay, I'll show you how we kind of got to those numbers. Those aren't just pulled out of thin air. Anything in the yellow would be, you'd be a very middle of the pack performer within our league, and anything red would kind of skew you to be the bottom of our league, okay? And that's okay. It's okay to understand where somebody's at. It's important to know that anybody in red has the same, it's called conditional formatting, but has the same conditional formatting based on what the expectations are for the position. It is possible for me to have 4 left side hitters that are all hitting green, meaning all playing really great. So it doesn't order them saying you're red because you're worse than my other outside hitter. The standard is the standard, right? Now for us, this is going to be hard to see. I get that this isn't super clear. I can send this to anybody. We do every year, well, every couple of years really, because it takes a lot of work. What we do is we take our league, right? This is the MAC conference. Okay, and what we do is we kind of take every hitter that's in by position. This is our left side hitters. This is a couple years old. I'm sorry. This is our middle hitters here. And what we do is we take the stats from an entire MAC season, so comparable results. Okay, and we kind of say these are Ball State's left sides, but we rank them. This is by efficiency. We rank them by kill percentage, and then that gives us an idea. If we want to have middle hitters that are in the top third of our conference, which we feel puts us in a position to compete for the conference title, we need to be having output that equals these players. So I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty other than letting you know that for what we do to decide what those thresholds are is comparable to the league that we're in. What turns my group green as a left side is different than what would turn a left side green in the Big Ten, for example. They want to be a little bit more terminal. They want to be a little bit more other things. Our league is different, right? So we have to understand what the standard is within our league before we start kind of saying this is what we need from you, okay? Now we do that for each position group. This is the middles. If you look over to the left, if we kept scrolling, I would have one for the outsides and the right sides. We do this every 2 years or so. Just gives us an idea of what kind of volleyball is winning within our league, okay? This might not be something you have time to do in your league. You might stat based on years before and have an idea of, hey, what's an all-conference performer? What's a mediocre player? What's a pretty poor kind of standard of starter for you, okay? Now, in 3 categories, we look at our left sides, or attacking, all of our attackers, okay? We look at their hitting efficiency. Efficiency takes into account their kills minus their errors divided by their attempts. It's the traditional hitting percentage that we all have, okay? It obviously says, what kind of output do you have? How many points are you costing us? And then we average that out. And that's part of the puzzle, right? We have to be able to manage the ball. We can't be high error. Maybe we got 10 kills, but if it cost us 10 errors to get there, like we're kind of net zero, right? So hitting efficiency brings that into account. Number 2, we look at kill percentage, right? Our ability to kill balls based on the amount of swings we get. You know, if I'm 10 kills, 10 errors on 20 swings, I have a kill percentage of 50%. I'm killing the ball half of the time I hit it. Okay, obviously the other half are errors. That's a downside for us. okay, but I have an idea, are we being terminal with our swings? So it gives me different information than hitting efficiency. The third thing we look at is air percentage, okay? Now, if you're a volley dork and you're putting this all together, your kill percentage minus your air percentage is your hitting efficiency. But we break those three things up because we want to know what comprises our athletes and where are they maybe meeting the mark, where are they not meeting the mark, okay? And I'm going to show you a couple of players. These are actual players on our roster, so don't tell them I shared all this. Okay, so we're going to talk about a player for us. She just graduated, okay? This is a player named Anna. Anna Erickson is going to play at 50 or somewhere. She's been a staple of our program for a long time. Anna's big issue is that as an attacker, she's actually incredibly low error. Okay, probably the lowest error left side in the MAC, and I don't even think that's not even hyperbole. She's probably the lowest error left side attacker in the entire league. Okay, the way that we organize our spreadsheet here is everything that's in white. I know you can't see numbers, those are practice days. Everything that's in black is more of a match day, so we get an idea, are they performing in practice, maybe struggling during matches, and we can break those two things out. This is all done by pen and paper during practice, and then just literally input it at the end of practice. So at the end of each day, although this looks like a lot of numbers, there's literally one day, one line. So it's your passing stats and your hitting stats, and then that's it for the day. So we're not filling one of these out every single time we practice, okay? And then the conditional formatting just automatically pops out. So if somebody's meeting the mark because of the way we type that in, and I'm not gonna Microsoft Excel you to death, but look up conditional formatting, and it will automatically pop out red, yellow, and green based on what those numbers are. The numbers on the bottom, or the tabs on the bottom for us, these kind of designate because my left sides have a different red, yellow, green threshold for attacking than my middles do, right? My middles have a different threshold than my right sides do. But we expect our middles to be able to attack at a higher percentage. They're getting in-system passes, typically up with one block, so we expect them to kind of perform at a higher level as opposed to our left sides who have to be our garbage ladies sometimes and kind of take out the trash when we get ourselves into trouble. We call them garbage ladies. Because they have to navigate some other place. So their terminal ability is going to be kind of down. Now we're going back to Anna, right? So if we look in the black here, and this is actually perfect for conditional formatting because it's not one of those things that is, you can't see the numbers anyway, but the idea of doing conditional formatting for me is that my athletes don't think in numbers like I think. So by doing it in color, we can see some pretty big things, right? We can see that Anna over here in gameplay only is what? This is our air column. So she is meeting the standard in this column every single day. But that's coming at the expense of which column? Middle, kills percentage, right? So when I bring Anna into my office and we're talking about her performance, I now have different metrics here. She's hitting in the green for attack percentage. That's good. And she's looking at that and she's like, Coach, what else do you want? I'm one of the top 25% of the attackers in the league. And she's right. But the downside for us is that this number, can't read it, is the lowest number in our league. She's the least terminal player in our league, which means she's managing a lot of rallies. Now, you guys are volleyball coaches, you've been around a long time. Does in equate to winning matches? We know that out equates to losing matches, but the higher you get, just facilitating rallies by keeping the ball in play is only costing you rallies later on. My two left sides, we have another left side named Natalia. Okay, she's a freshman for us, also almost the exact same thing. Very low terminal, not killing many balls, managing a lot of swings, okay, and then kind of very, very low in the air category. So if you're playing against Central Michigan right now and we're setting our left sides, we're in a little bit of trouble because we don't kill the ball at nearly high enough rate, right? Anna has graduated, so we've got somebody else. She now can kill the ball, but she also hits the back wall sometimes. So a little bit, 6 of one, half a dozen the other. In our gym, we track these things because we want to be able to tell our athletes where they can go with the information. If you're tracking stats and you're utilizing time and manpower to collect information, but you're really not doing anything with it, might be a waste of your time, right? So it's got to be something that you stay with consistently, and it's got to be something that you build up kind of like a resume so that every time our athletes come into my office, if they want to see this, this is available for them, okay? So we can pull up theirs, we can talk about it. I don't jam this stuff down their throat, okay? They've told me on many occasions that stats stress them out. Has anybody ever heard that? Hey, the fact that you stat things kind of stresses me out. What's our response to that as coaches? What do you think it could be? You gotta flip it. That's great. Because we need to learn how to play under expectations, right? So it applies some pressure to our athletes in a training environment that maybe they are feeling it, right? Hey, what happens if I make an error? Coach is writing that down. What the heck are you doing over there on that clipboard, right? I just want to play, I want to do, but it also kind of keeps us accountable that we need to be able to perform with eyes on us. Now I think that before I get too far, I think it's really important that we have opportunity at practice for them to work where this isn't a thing, right? It is important. I call it laboratory time. Mentally, I call it laboratory time. They have to have time to experiment. They have to be able to try new things. Because if every single swing we take during practice is statted, we're creating these stat monsters, right? And it's only a piece of the pie. It's a fairly large piece of the pie, productivity, the ability to help us win matches, but obviously other things like leadership, or obviously things like passing and ball control. What I'm not telling you just yet is these two passers are actually really good, right? They help us get the ball to other people. So they have value to us even though they're not killing the ball. But it helps us focus conversations that we have with our players, and you can see how consistent they are, right? Our expectation is that we want to keep them in the yellow and green. And I say all the time, I want the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers play all the time. So if you find yourself with a body of work that's green and yellow, can't keep those players off the floor, right? Even if they're turds. You gotta probably have them out there. Okay? But you typically find that the players that can stay the most consistent are finding their way out into the court for you. Okay? So from an attacking perspective, that's pretty easy, right? It's pretty easy, kills, errors, attempts. There's no quality control there unless somebody just doesn't understand what a kill is or doesn't understand what an error is. You know, it really isn't that big of a deal to kind of get people to understand quality control. Okay? Now, what are some other stats that we do that have quality elements to them? Passing is probably the biggest one, right? In our gym, we pass on a 4-point scale. I'm not trying to change you to a 4-point scale. You can do whatever you want. 3 points is also very popular. We pass on a 4-point scale. But let me define our scale for you, okay? A 4 pass for us is what we would consider a perfect pass. A ball that goes right to target, a ball that doesn't make our setter move much. Everybody's an option, right? A 3 pass for us is a ball that we feel we can force the middle on, but we're probably on the move a little bit, right? We still think we can get her the ball, but it's certainly going to kind of force us to kind of have to be really good and really exact with that exchange between middle and setter. A 2 pass, our middle is not an option, okay? And a 1 pass, we're either taking it with our forearms or we can only set one attacker. Now for our quality control in our gym, we say a 0 is a pass that doesn't give us any offensive options. So again, some people just say a reception error is an error. That's your prerogative. I've got no issue with that. I'm not trying to change you. But I would rather say somebody that shanks the ball that turns into a free ball would be a 0 in our system as well. It provided 0 offense, as would an overpass, right? So an overpass in our metrics goes down as a reception error, so to speak, in our metric here, okay? We're looking for our passers to be over a 2.4. Again, that's based on a 4-point scale. If you're on a 3-point scale, that number scales down to probably a 2.1 or a 2.2 to be a pretty efficient passer. And again, we did all the work. I'm not going to show you that background work of kind of showing what passers do in that regard. But this is our starting libero, and I'm going to show you her passing numbers, okay, and in game play, but we track it in practice as well, okay. You're looking at somebody, that's a lot of green and yellow over there, right? Not even looking at the numbers, but you see somebody that's meeting the mark there. She's an all-conference player as a sophomore. So when she came in as a freshman, I had a really tough decision. You've all been in this same position before. I get this young lady coming into our gym. Her name's Ali Gertiza. She's a freshman. She's a walk-on for us. We have 3 seniors on my roster, right? Actually, 3 fourth-year players, 2 fourth-year players and a 5th-year player on a roster that stayed for COVID. Ali Gertiza comes into our gym. We know she's pretty good, right? We recruited her. We think she's a stud, okay? But on day 1, what's our decision? Ugh, tough one, right? We know that if we start the freshman too soon, even though we know she has a body of work, that there's going to cause some chaos, right? And college program, same thing, right? Seniors are looking at it as their opportunity to play, but you clearly have a body of work here that was important for me to be able to show not only them, but anybody that wanted to see why that decision is being made. Because we've all been accused of playing our favorites, right? We know that, right? We've all been accused that if you've been in coaching any longer than about 3 days, somebody's accused you of playing your favorite, right? Now, and we've seen this quote before, what is our favorite player? What does our favorite player look like? Hard worker? What else?
Consistent.
Consistent. What else? Coachable. What else? Yeah, productive, right? Our favorite players are productive, typically, and they embody a lot of those same things. But it comes into play when athletes start accusing you of playing their favorites because, oh, he wants to play his kid or her kid or whatever. Oh, their parents are friends, or it's just all BS, right? And you know that. But this kind of allowed us an opportunity to say, okay, her body of work right out of the gates was just stone cold better than everybody else. She started on day one. It was not a popular decision. Didn't make me popular amongst my 3 nuggets that had to make that decision. Early on in that season, everybody was battling for position time, trying to say, I'm going to be the libero, I'm going to be the libero. We made the decision that Allie was going to be our libero based on her productivity, more importantly, her work ethic, her consistency of that ability. Okay? But now I had people coming to me saying, because they were able to see some of these things, they're like, ooh, yeah, it took 4 weeks, but now they're saying, I want to be in a DS role, because they're like, yeah, I can't do that as rough, but I can fight for that DS role. Now all of a sudden my second team DS is upset that she's the DS, or the libero, because she's like, why am I in a libero role if I can't earn that role? It's like, well, you can, we're always open-minded, but it just changed their perspective. But this helped give me some backbone as a coach to be able to justify that my eyes are telling me this kid is better, but having a little bit of feedback that says statistically she's actually performing at a higher place gave me a little bit of ability to kind of justify, you know, our thoughts, right? Does that make sense? We've all been in a situation like that before, right? Now, if we're going to do evaluative metrics, if we're going to evaluate quality metrics, what's really important for us? What do you think? If we're going to do something that judges quality of contact. Same words, consistency. It's got to be really important, right? We have to be on the same page. If I stat our passers, and Steph stats our passers, or Katie stats our passers, our volunteer assistant, my wife, we have to be on the same page. I mean, and you might have us at a 2.4, and I might have us at a 2.39. I can deal with that. But if you think we passed a 2.4, and somebody else watches the same film that says we passed a 1.9, we've got some quality control issues. And so before we start using stats to be incorporated into our gym, we have to be really clear that our quality metrics are consistent. Because if you start kind of playing favorites, or you're really off on how it went, right? How many people hand a clipboard to somebody on their bench who's not a coach? Anybody have players take stats? It's okay, you can say. We do sometimes. I think the quality of those stats, have you ever double checked the quality of those stats? They are hot trash, right? And here's the reason they're hot trash, is because they get caught up in the game. They get super excited about the game. They want to get excited for their friends. They also don't want to be mean to their friend who just passed that ball. It should be a 1, but let me go ahead and give her the 2Z, right? Let me go ahead and give her a boost, right? Or even worse, right? This happens sometimes. I busted a player from doing this a couple years ago. She looks down at her paper. We're in the set 4, and she looks down and she's got like 11 passes for the entire match because she's not been paying attention. And so what does she start doing? Fake stats. Fake stats. You got to be really careful of that, right? Whoever's doing your stats, I'd rather have stats that are incomplete than fake, right? And so whoever's taking your stats, if it's a coach, a parent that you really trust, and I would say you'd almost be better off investing in a parent that's not on the team, so somebody that can take objective stats for you. Or in the case of what we do in our gym, a lot of times we'll record practice, and Katie, again, my wife, our volunteer assistant, she'll watch it kind of back an extra 30 minutes and stat it afterwards so that the quality metrics of that are on the same page. And like I said, a little bit of creative license. If Steph and I watched 100 passes, I don't know that we would match on 100, but we better match on 90 plus, right? Something like that. Otherwise, the stats we're taking are bogus anyway. And now we're basing decisions on bad information, right? And you guys aren't volumetrics people, but sometimes their stats are hot trash, and you're making decisions based on it, and it's like, these aren't correct, right? So you've got to kind of make sure that whatever we're doing from a quality standpoint is consistent over time, and that it's replicable, right? So that you have clearly defined factors that say, you know, what is a 3 pass, what is a 2 pass, what is a 1 pass, right? Those kind of things, because especially if you're going to use that to kind of evaluate decision making, okay? Now, other stats in volleyball. Who uses, somebody had a question?
Yeah, I don't need to jump in.
No, please.
Okay, so if I want to evaluate for a certain skill set, but I'm the only adult in the room, can I isolate my observation to one, the drill or activity, record the stats, still consider that as a valid evaluation, or do I need to have it be kind of more holistic, where I'm also looking at that skill in a number of different?
Yeah, I think you raise a good question. We only stat drills that are 6-on-6. That's important to us. We only stat passers that are coming from a teammate, never coach serve, or very, very rarely coach serve. The only scenario we would do that is kind of like in our individual training, right? So it's important for us to have some quality metrics, right? If you're hitting into an open court and we're trying to decide, that would be a kill, Or like, I don't think that one would be a kill. That's real dangerous territory, right? We all know that sometimes bad swings are kills. We all know that sometimes good swings aren't, right? So we only stat live at practice when we're playing 6-on-6, and we also have no limitations on who can, like, what they can do. So I'll give you an example. Some of the drills we do, we'll do this in 6v6. It's a drill we did the other day with our team. It's a drill called, this word you'll have heard a lot from us, but pickleball, right? So the drill is called pickle, pickle, pound, right? So the first possession from each team has to be an off-speed ball, right? I've got a lot of big swingers in our gym, people that just go and hammer away, but they need to get better at working off-speed balls, right? My two players that are my low air attackers are not in my gym right now, and man, I got meatheads on the left side. They will kill the ball, but they might kill the people in the front row as well. So we've got to get them to work on their off-speed balls kind of with the drill like that.
So as a follow-up, when you're taking the steps in 6-on-6, are you looking at multiple skills simultaneously, or is it okay to like isolate, like today I'm just going to be evaluating for a controlled passes, or can you be, just like paying attention?
I think whatever your limitations are, I think that's good. The more numbers you have, the more valid they're going to be, right? Like if you're going to say to somebody that, and I say this to our athletes sometimes they'll be green because they went 1 for 3. Like, man, that's kind of an irrelevant skill set. Like, I'll look at their week totals more than I'll look at their like day totals, right? If they only have 3, I'm looking for bodies of work more than I'm looking for how they did in one particular line. So I'm pointing here, and you got to trust me here. There's only 5 passes in this line right here. So like the 2.6 that it is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'd rather have somebody that probably passes a 2.4 over 40 passes than somebody that had 1 really good pass and probably 3 bad passes. So the bigger your sample size is, the more quality your data I think will be. And I don't really get, this looks like I'm really into the data, the numbers. There's some volley geeks out there that use data volley and volley metrics, and they're like in rotation 1, we're hitting 325 off of the hut when we're out of system from zone 5, and you're like, I mean, I dream volleyball, I don't know what the hell that means. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that, right? So if our stats that we're taking aren't gonna help us dictate training, or aren't gonna help us dictate player conversations, we're just wasting time. For the newspaper, that's different, right? That's a different element that you have. I have people taking actual box scores for gameplay. But going back to your point, whatever you're gonna value is good. Maybe today you only wanna stat out your left sides to just make it and that's fine. But I think that if we're only statting people, we try to stat players 3 times a week. Okay, I like to stat twice at practice so that players that don't get a chance to play have an opportunity to change my mind. Okay, we're going to talk about Christina Caston here for just a second. Christina Caston's a right side for us, big physical right side player for us, and I didn't really make too much mention of this, but there's a couple of elements of our sheet here. We have week to week. This is week 6, week 7, week 8 with the matches in there. And then we have this column over here where it's their week totals, right? The bigger sample sizes like I was just talking about. So Christina's a player for us. She's a left-handed player, sophomore player, and she was kind of struggling right out of the gate. And I'm going to try to get you to ignore this part right here. So she comes in the first 6 weeks of preseason. It's not really clicking for her. There's some green days, a lot of red days. Okay, 23% air, 17% air, 22% air. She's just high air in this period of time. She comes in, she says, Coach, I'm really frustrated because I'm not playing really well. We have a grad transfer, a woman named Mallory Hernandez that came in from Georgia, first team all-conference player. She was really good. Okay, so she took Christina's spot because she was just a better player. And we'll show you Mallory here in a second. She was killing the ball like 500, right? That's really good. So Christina was in a little bit of a funk, right? She's feeling like, I came into my sophomore year, I thought I was gonna play. Then we get Mallory, Mallory's really good. And so she kind of was in this doldrum. So we brought her in and said, hey, here's what we need to be working on. Here are some things that we can focus on. Let's stay the course here. Now, Christina then goes in, and in week 7, 8, 9, 10, you're seeing this, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ooh, this kid's turning a corner here, right? If we're not tracking her performance over a period of time, we might get caught up just remembering the first 6 weeks. Christina's bad, she hits the ball out of bounds, she's not ready, this. But this allows us to separate week to week and see that Christina in week 7, 8, 9, 10, man, she started to turn a corner, right? Now I'm looking for more than just one day, I'm looking for bigger chunks. So I care more about week to week than I do day to day or drill to drill. They care about that, I care about week to week. So this helped me and our coaching staff be like, Christina's playing pretty well. Well, you know who started playing a little bit more poorly? Her friend Mallory, right? Her friend Mallory wasn't playing as great. And so if we look up here in gameplay, you start to see that around that time, right? Christina's kind of jumping into some matches because she's proved it on the practice court for us, right? And, you know, I think that other things, caveats to keep in mind. If you do a lot of starters versus bench in your drill, or if you do a lot of varsity versus JV, your varsity stats should be better than the JV stats. They're playing against a bunch of kids you didn't take on varsity, right? So I think it's important to kind of know what kind of bind you might be putting your athletes in. If one player only plays off an all-state setter all the time because she's on her team and you keep them together, and one's playing off of, you know, like I said, Edward Scissorhands out there, it might be a different ball foot that they can hit off of, right? So there's elements to that, and if you're going to compare them, they have to have a very, you know, comparable sample size. I believe in our gym, we do a lot of shared kind of lineups. We do a lot of balanced teams. So I'm not a huge fan of, my staff is more a fan of, the starters have to play together all the time. And I'm like, how does that make the starters better? If our best 6 people are over there, then how are they supposed to make them better? If they were gonna make them better, they'd be on that side. So I tend to balance it out. I want my libero to see what it's like to dig heat from our, you know, 3 or 4 best attackers. I want our servers to serve at really good passers. So that's, again, fundamentally that's what I believe, but that helps balance out the sample sizes so that Christina is playing with whoever our starting setter is and whoever isn't fairly equal.